So you win your conference championship in the SEC, no less. You go on to earn that number 2 seed in the CFP, and yet at the end of the day, it isn't quite good enough. Such is life, I suppose, when you're affiliated with the University of Georgia football program. How's it going, everybody? Bradford Bruns, we are back. We are live in studio and coming to you from Creve Court. It is the brand new installment of the College Football Connection, continuing to motor along with these SEC-centric previews in advance of Week 0, August the 23rd. That's when the real action gets started across the nation. Now, we understand it's been a couple of weeks since we were last able to touch base and get on the same page with one another. Some duties over at 101 ESPN definitely called and intervened, but we are very thankful that you are back and consuming our product. It is the 101 ESPN YouTube channel as well as 101ESPN.com. Okay, so far, 3 different programs down. The one that started it all, Tennessee. Then we segued into Coach Beamer's South Carolina squad. At last check, it was Auburn. But for the purpose of this episode, it is time to travel to Athens, where, let's just say, the faithful there, the Georgia Bulldogs faithful, not exactly enthused with the way in which 2024 concluded, even though, as we had referenced right off of the top, you took down the Texas Longhorns in the SEC title tilt. And you did that despite losing your number 1 signal caller roughly halfway through the proceedings due to injury. Now, subsequently, we understand it wasn't exactly pretty against the University of Notre Dame in the college football playoff, but you wound up losing to the eventual national runner-up to the Ohio State University. And yet, at the end of the day, if you are a Georgia fan, if you are an enthusiast, and you look at the body of work that has been compiled by Kirby Moore ever since he took over that program, you are not satisfied unless your season is ending by lifting that hardware. That is exactly what came to fruition in 2021 and 2022. The back-to-back crowns, 2023, hey, couple of plays here or there, breaking a different way. Maybe you're talking about an unprecedented three-peat. As it stands, though, you know, guys, entering each and every season that if the Bulldogs aren't considered the prohibitive favorites in the entire nation, they are right there in the upper tier with the very few competitors. That would seem to be the case once again in 2025. But if Georgia is to get back to that hallowed ground, basically measuring up to its exceedingly lofty standards, well, it's going to have to do so despite, maybe in spite of a few different question marks, quite a few, we should be honest, on the offensive side of the football and then defensively too. Hey, let's not exactly sugarcoat it. 2024 was a subpar, again, relative to expectations, performance by both of those units. And Carson Beck, who, of course, has transferred to the University of Miami, he wasn't off the hook. Yeah, this is somebody who had, over the course of 2 seasons, he had thrown for more than 50 touchdowns. He had thrown for more than 7,000 yards all told. But last year, he also forced the ball into double and triple coverage on many different occasions, resulting in the 12 interceptions. But he is not there to be the punching bag this coming fall. Instead, it's the guy who took over in that SEC title game matchup against the Texas Longhorns, and actually in quarters 3 and 4, and then venturing closer to the overtime period. You guys remember, that was a classic game. It was a modern classic. Gunnar Stockton acquitted himself very, very nicely. The bottom fell out a couple of weeks thereafter as Marcus Freeman's Notre Dame program had plenty of time in which to prepare for the redshirt junior right now. And we'll see exactly what comes to pass this season, okay? Stockton is somebody who does give you more of that additional component of mobility, something that was lacking for all of the virtues and all of the different attributes that were possessed by Carson Beck. Yes, even after Brock Bowers departed for the NFL. We won't go there. He wasn't exactly the most elusive guy. He didn't exactly have that ability, the aptitude to get outside of the pocket and keep the play moving, right? This is somebody in Stockton who is able to execute to some degree those off-platform throws, but to whom is he going to be throwing in 2025? This was a bedeviling issue for Georgia just a season ago. You didn't have a lot of outside of the numbers playmakers, okay? Bowers was sorely missed, but by the same token, guys who could consistently stretch the field, and I am a little worried along those lines heading into this fall as well. Now, there's nothing about which to worry if you're talking about opening the season with a twin pack of games against non-Power 4 opponents. Marshall, with all due respect, we're not worrying about you. We're not worrying about anybody until September the 13th at Neyland Stadium. We'll get to that in a minute. But Zachariah Branch, coming over from USC, a former five-star recruit, somebody who's going to be counted upon heavily to do a lot out of the slot. He's largely disappointed, guys, let's just be frank, during his collegiate career so far. So Georgia is going to have some returning individuals and also some unexpected sources really step up in the passing game to make things marginally easier for Gunnar Stockton as he continues to acclimate to that playbook and really gets into the swing of things as the number one quarterback for the Georgia Bulldogs. Also on the ground, believe it or not, this Georgia attack, it was stunning last season. Ladies and gentlemen, the ineptitude consistently on the ground. When you think about Georgia, you think about being able to win in the trenches, win at the point of attack, and being able to ground and pound accordingly. And yet, only once last year, once after week 2, did Georgia actually manage to pick up more than 150 team yards on the ground. That simply cannot happen once again. Nate Frazier, he was absolutely fine. You need to see more growth out of him. And then I think a big bonus in the backfield. 5th year coming from the University of Illinois. Yeah, we see it, Kerry Davis. Josh McCray. Not a home run hitter by trade, but he did pick up 10 touchdowns last season on the ground for the Fighting Illini. You were desperately hoping, if you're Kirby Smart, to be able to come up with some kind of thunder and lightning style of tandem, right? Because you're also losing 3 starting interior linemen. And this program always does such a commendable job of being able to reinforce, right, through the portal and recruiting, no doubt about it. But a lot of depth has been gone, a lot of depth has left, and that's going to happen when your program is constantly being poached by the next level. This is absolutely stunning. 13 different players from last year's team selected in April's NFL draft. That has almost become par for the course for a Kirby Smart coach team. So as per usual, Georgia is going to have to overcome that. Also, we'll have to overcome some losses on the defensive side. And last year, to be completely honest, you still lost just a pair of games regular season-wise, right? There was a grand disappointment. You weren't in the ball game against Ole Miss. That was pretty inexplicable. But it was a feast or famine style when it came to defensive production, especially coming from the edge. Many different losses on that side as well. And in the secondary, I am particularly worried about Malachi Starks moving on to the NFL, obviously having been drafted by the Baltimore Ravens. There is still depth aplenty at the second level, even though Damon Wilson, he did transfer too. So like Beck, Wilson, and Beck, 2 huge stars moving on to different programs. You trust in Smart, you trust in his experienced coaching staff to bring this group along sooner rather than later. And to that end, I really think that the early season schedule, there are a couple of potential stumbling blocks, as is always the case when you're talking about the SEC. But starting with your SEC opener, September the 13th, Tennessee. On paper, it looks daunting, and I'm not trying to shortchange Josh Heupel's program. By the same time, Josh Heupel has never defeated Kirby Smart head-to-head in the SEC. And oh yeah, there's the beguiling issue of exactly how the quarterback position is going to work out for Tennessee. Hey, the last 4 matchups in Knoxville, Georgia has won by at least 24 points. That is going to happen once again. And at the same time, you're easing into the schedule somewhat. You're not looking ahead to Alabama because Alabama happens at home 2 weeks thereafter. There is not going to be any sort of a letdown scenario in this situation, ladies and gentlemen. Now, if you move into October, though, barring a loss to Alabama, and we're saying barring at this moment because there's a lot to be figured out, especially for the Crimson Tide, too, at the quarterback position when you're talking about a freshman who is going to be traveling into Sanford Stadium there. It gets a little more tricky. You have Ole Miss once again, but you have Ole Miss at home, and that's the thing. Guys, when you're talking about when you're shifting ahead and flashing forward to mid-November for that matter, too, we're not trying to put the cart before the horse, but when Texas arrives for that incredibly exciting rematch, it's all happening in Georgia's own backyard. This is a striking marked contrast. It's a difference from a year ago when Georgia did have the most arduous schedule in the entire country. The SEC is the SEC, but when you have more of the top-tier outfits visiting your place, your confines, that makes an incredible difference. A couple of potential spots in which I could envision some mysteries maybe unfolding or a little bit of uncertainty. Number one, later on, September moving into October, traveling to Auburn. Guys, you heard it last time around on the College Football Connection here on the 101 ESPN YouTube channel and 101ESPN.com. Hugh Freeze cannot afford to mess around in 2025. He has a crazy amount of talent really materializing on both sides of the football, and this is a critical year, a primetime contest with a chance to maybe knock off an undefeated Georgia program at that point in time. Watch out for that one. And also November the 1st, neutral site game for all intents and purposes, the University of Florida. If you've listened to the Fast Lane over the last couple of weeks as we get closer and closer to the beginning of the college football season, you know that Anthony Stalter has been all in on one DJ Lagway. Lenore Sellers, DJ Lagway, two of the preeminent quarterbacks in this conference. That could be a tricky one, to say nothing of Georgia Tech a couple of weeks later. Heck, last year, guys, that game went to, 8 overtimes. So it's not as if Georgia is immune here from stumbling at one point or another. But if I'm evaluating the over-under figure for 2025, it's currently at 9.5. And again, we will reiterate this once more. In 7 of the last 8 seasons, Kirby Smart has led his team to 11 or more victories. I'm not saying it's easy money. I'm not saying, hey, consult with Alvin or Marty before you put down an absolute boatload of funds. But are you really telling me that you are willing to bet against Georgia, even in what appears to be on the surface right now as we sit in late July, a bit of a retooling season? I'm not going to fall into that category. I'm not going to fall for it, because full steam ahead, this team is still as physical, it is as athletically gifted and sublime as any other unit in the conference, with the possible exception of Texas. Speaking of those Longhorns, speaking of Arch Manning, hey, we have already had the SEC Media Days. We have heard from a number of the stars, both from the playing end of things and definitely the coaching side as well. We'll get to Texas in short order. Oklahoma coming up as well. Preview for Venables Sooners in the next few days. Tomorrow, I am personally hoping to be able to make it out to MU as the student athletes report. And the first practice of fall camp, that session is on Monday. So at that point in time, we'll talk a little bit more about what Eli Drinkwitz hopefully has to say. Contract extension, even a moderate one at that. There's so much to which to get in the days and definitely the weeks and months ahead. So as always, we appreciate your listening. We know we have a lot of different options out there for you at present. Cardinals still trying to stay viable in that wild card race. We'll see how the remainder of that Padres series downtown shakes out this weekend. And be sure, for all of your baseball-centric coverage and everything else happening both in the Lou and across this great nation, 101 ESPN is your stop. 7 a.m. TMA on Monday morning. Until next time, my name is Bradford Bruns. More of the CFC, more of those previews coming at you very, very soon. Have a great rest of the weekend, everybody.